Good Sunday morning. I don't go to church anymore, so I guess we're going to have a Sunday morning worship here on the podcast. I do not have unleavened bread or grape juice. I do, however, have a roast beef and white cheddar sandwich on Hawaiian rolls and some coffee and some vanilla bourbon. So that's, I feel like, at least just as good, if not better. Hi, I'm your host, Naomi, and this is Mosaic in Progress. Welcome back to the podcast. Wow, I cannot believe it has been an entire year since I posted my introduction episode, the really short first episode. This podcast started as a way for me to kind of undo the blocks. People have been asking me for a long time to tell my story, or write my story specifically, and something in me just said nobody really wants to hear that. And I was like, this is free. Let's give it a go. Everyone keeps asking me to do it. Let's try it. Let's see where this goes. And I really did not expect to still be doing this a year later. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank all of you that subscribe, that have encouraged me, that have sent in comments, and those of you who have been with me from the beginning, and especially to my husband who encouraged me to start it in the first place and continues to encourage me. And I just want to send so much love out there to all of you who are listening and have supported me, and this would not be possible without any of you. So, jumping right into it, the topic I want to talk about today is forgiveness, and there is going to be so many tangents. I already know this ahead of time, but they're planned tangents, and they are pertinent to the topic, just little side roads that we're going to journey on while we're talking about forgiveness. So, growing up in the evangelical church, obviously, forgiveness was a really big topic of discussion all the time. And growing up, to me, forgiveness was, in a way, just as confusing a concept as love. I never could quite land on exactly what it meant. And it just seemed so shrouded in mystery and confusion. And it took me a really long time, just as it did with the concept of love, to kind of land on exactly what it means. And as I being removed from that environment and that mentality and that belief system, look back on it, I see that the reason why it was so confusing is because the concepts of love and forgiveness are twisted within the evangelical community such that they lose their true meaning because they have to mean something else than what they actually are in order to work within that belief system. Otherwise, the whole thing falls on its head. So if you've listened to any of my episodes previously about my experience with the church, you know that I was raised by a Church of Christ preacher, and I think I was about 7 when we quit going to church and we started worshiping at home. And I moved out of my parents' house when I was a few months away from turning 28. And a few months after that, started going to a Church of Christ that was near my apartment. And it was very different from the Church of Christ experience that I had had, but still very toxic, still with the patriarchal, misogynistic, hate-filled evangelical belief system. And it was freeing in a way, and it was still harmful in a lot of ways. But being around people who were Christian and Church of Christ Christians and in a lot of ways believed very differently from my parents was very eye-opening for me and kind of opened the door for me to start questioning things more. And I remember having this discussion about forgiveness so many times with some of the ladies there at church. And I remember talking about it in context of salvation forgiveness. And I didn't say it at the beginning of the episode, but again, always check the show description for content and trigger warnings. As I'm about to talk about the theology of evangelical doctrine, the theology of forgiveness and salvation, and that might be triggering for some people. But again, check the episode description for any content or trigger warnings. So, in the context of salvation, forgiveness looks like this. Okay, you hurt me by not following my law. And because you hurt me, here is my boundary. We don't have a relationship anymore. This is God speaking to us sinners. You crossed the boundary. The consequences of crossing that boundary, not respecting that boundary, are we no longer have a relationship. If I forgive you, that means I have decided I'm going to ignore what you did. I'm going to pretend it didn't happen. It's erased from your record, my memory, whatever. Didn't happen. It's gone. Slate wiped clean. Our relationship is restored. In the evangelical church, the concept of forgiveness is not viewed in the same way as salvation forgiveness. And I think that this came about for a very specific reason, and that reason is the level of abuse that goes on in the church. That's pure conjecture, but let me explain. In the evangelical church, if you ask someone about forgiveness, not forgiveness for yourself, for your sins from God, but forgiving, say, your abusive parent, for example. This was a conversation I had a lot. You have to forgive your dad. You have to forgive your dad. You have to forgive your dad. Why? Why do I have to forgive him? In the first place, he's not repentant. The Bible never says you have to forgive an unrepentant person. He has blatantly said he's not sorry for anything that he did and that we are horrible people for bringing it up to him in the first place. The Bible doesn't say you have to forgive somebody like that. But they insisted, forgiveness isn't for the other person, it's for you. It's for you to let go. Okay, well, what does that mean? It means that you have let go of it. It doesn't mean you have to have a relationship with them. You're just letting go. And I think this is a huge problem. And it's not just in the evangelical church. There's a lot of people in different spiritual communities that use this concept to talk about forgiveness. And one of the reasons this came up with me, I've been really into Queen Herbie lately. If you don't know who Queen Herbie is, she's a rapper, singer. She used to be half of the duo Carmen and then rebranded herself a few years later. I stumbled across her on TikTok a few years ago, and she started doing these aura cleanse videos, which are super relaxing. They're ASMR videos. And tangent number one, ASMR was my first coping skill that I found after alcohol to manage my PTSD in my early 20s. My first coping skill was alcohol. I quickly developed a dependence. It became a problem like almost immediately because I had no emotional regulation coping skills because my parents just beat me when I had big feels. And so when I had this horrific thing happen in my early 20s and developed PTSD like super fast about it, I didn't know how to handle it. I had no support system that I could talk to or get help or advice, and I couldn't sleep. And I was having nightmares when I did sleep and panic attacks and etc. constantly. And I had this idea. I was like, what if, you know how sometimes when I'm like on the phone and someone has like a certain kind of voice, I get like these tingles in my head, or sometimes like at the hairdresser I get them. I bet there's a way I could recreate that. I have no idea what that's called. And I think I like had the longest Google search ever. It was like, what are the head tingles you get when people talk on the phone or you get your hair done called or something like that. It was like ridiculous. And Google was like, do you mean autonomous sensory meridian response? And I was like, I don't know. Do I? Maybe. And then I discovered the ASMR community on YouTube and figured out what my triggers were. And I would watch these ASMR videos to like calm down from a panic attack or a flashback or right before I went to bed to help me sleep. And so ASMR has been like a huge part of my life ever since then, because it was like the first thing I discovered that like helped me calm down without having like negative effects that went along with it. It wasn't drugs, it wasn't alcohol. And when I say drugs, I mean medication. I never did drugs, like drugs. But it wasn't anything that came with side effects or, you know, any kind of stigma or problems. It helped. And so whenever I discover like new ASMR things, I'm like, let's see if I like that. Let's see if we can add that to the toolbox. And her aura cleanses were just like incredible. So I ended up joining her Patreon because one of her TikTok aura cleanse videos, she's like, oh, I do extended aura cleanses on my Patreon. I was like, sign me up. And she did one recently, her latest one, that was for forgiveness. And I was like, this is interesting. And she's talking about how you have to forgive the people who've hurt you and continue to hurt you, so that it's not bothering you anymore. You let it go. And there is a huge difference between letting something go and forgiving someone. And we kind of don't make that distinction anymore. We think of, okay, I'm not going to let this bother me anymore, as forgiveness, and it's not. And why is this important? Like, doesn't language evolve and meanings evolve and things like that? Yes, absolutely they do. But the thing is, when you say forgiveness, people know what forgiveness means, and they bring up that idea, that concept into their heads. And when you try to tell them it means something different, they might follow through the actions of what you're saying forgiveness means. But when they tell themselves they've forgiven this person, their subconscious knows the meaning of that concept. And they hear, I forgive my abuser. And the feelings of what true forgiveness means come up and cause stress. And they feel like they have to rekindle this relationship or whatever. And I realize this is not true for everyone. Everyone has their own story and their own journey, and I'm speaking a lot in generalities right now. But it ties into this concept of people are bad or good. And it's something that I have still struggled with getting away from that mentality as I've left the church. Not just absolute black and white, it's good or bad. There's no gray areas. A person is good or bad, they're a sinner or they're saved. And then you get the, kind of self-righteous flagellating of, oh, we're all sinners even if we're saved. That's another topic for another day. But that idea of like, well, someone's bad or they're good, I tried to get away from it. I was like, I'm not going to think of people as being bad or being good. And I did the exact same thing, but with different terms without even realizing it. It was like, okay, well, they're either good for me or they're toxic, which is the same thing with different words. And something that kind of keeps coming up for me as I keep thinking about this, it's like, well, is it good and bad, or is it toxic and healthy, or is it just people are on different wavelengths? And you have to remain, you don't have to, you can, if you want to, jump all around. But as a general rule, you stay on a certain wavelength, where you're at, what you're aligned with, what you're trying to embody in your life. You're on a certain vibe. And sometimes you just don't vibe with people. That doesn't mean they're bad or toxic necessarily. It means you don't vibe with them. They might be perfect for someone else. They might be exactly what that other person needs. They might be perfect for themselves. They might be exactly where they need to be. But if someone is on, we can call it in heights, let's say they're on a lower vibration, lower wavelength, and they're trying to, in order to have a relationship with this person, you have to get down on their level. You have to lower your vibration, and that doesn't align with what you want your life to be, then that person needs to not be in your life, because it's not in alignment with who you are and what you need. And you don't have to villainize them in order to say, this isn't in alignment with my life right now. You don't have to say they're a bad person. You don't have to say they're toxic. You don't have to say, ugh, it's a low vibe. I don't want to be around their low vibe. You can just say, that's not where I want my vibe to be. I have made the decision. This is where I want to vibrate. This is how I want to live and vibrate and show up in the world. And I cannot do that and be that if I have to keep lowering my vibration to maintain this relationship. And I think that is where most people kind of sit with the changed definition of forgiveness. It's just, oh, not gonna hate you, but you stay over there. And it's a wonderful concept. It's just not forgiveness. Forgiveness implies a restoration of relationship. And the reason that it's important to make that distinction is because you are going to forgive people for real. And it's going to confuse your brain and other people and your vibration if you're truly forgiving one person and saying you're forgiving another person, but actually what you're doing is you're just in all love and high consciousness and good vibrations saying, we've just reached the end of our relationship. It's run its course. You stay in your vibe. I'm going to continue in mine. And it's kind of a hard switch to make in your brain when you've been living with this idea of good and bad, to just go, okay, I don't have to villainize this person. I don't have to think badly of them. I don't have to hate them. I don't have to have a visceral reaction every time I see them or hear of them or someone brings up their name. I can just say, that's not my vibe, and let it go. And letting go is an extremely healthy practice to get into, whether it's letting go of people who are not aligned with you or letting go of past hurts. And that doesn't mean that it didn't hurt and you don't necessarily, still have grief to work through to get over it or anything like that. It just means I'm not going to hold on to it. I'm not going to keep it tightly as a part of me and my identity, or keep this person as part of my inner circle or whatever. I'm not going to hold tightly to this thing that I really want to achieve or get or whatever. I'm just going to say, all right, I'm going to let go of the control. I'm going to let go of trying to draw it into my vibration. I'm just going to allow. And letting go of a person isn't allowing, because what you're doing when you're trying to keep someone in your circle who is out of alignment with you is you're forcing yourself into a different vibration. So for you to allow means I'm going to stay where I'm at. If they want to rise up to meet me where I'm at, they are more than welcome to come. But as long as they are in that lower vibration that I have to consciously change my own vibration to something out of alignment with myself to be in, our relationship will not continue. That is an allowing, that is a letting go. And it comes without judgment. And it doesn't have to be, oh, they're toxic. It's just, we're not in alignment. I'm going to stay in my own alignment and let whoever is in alignment with me flow to me, rather than trying to force relationships and force vibrational changes either for myself or for them to maintain this relationship. And I think I'm saying vibe and vibration and energy a lot more than I have in the podcast previously. And I think it's something that I have kind of shied away from in a way, not necessarily intentionally, but kind of unconsciously, because a lot of people hear that and kind of get turned off. So this is what I mean by that, and it ties into my belief system about the world now. So we know that everything is made up of energy. Science has proven this. Because everything is made up of energy, it vibrates. Energy vibrates. There's a vibration to everything. Your thoughts produce vibrations. Even science has proven this as well. So whatever you are living, whatever your belief system is, whatever your thoughts are, whatever your daily habits are, whatever your emotions are, etc., 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 it produces a vibration. And if you change your habits, you change your vibration. If you change your thoughts, you change your vibration. And we know that similar vibrations attract each other. Your vibe attracts your tribe, people like to say. You attract as you vibrate, people say. This is not woo-woo spiritual shit kind of stuff. It is literally scientific based living. And it sounds like woo-woo spiritual stuff because people don't think about it. People don't think about the fact that we are vibration. And when you say that, we are vibration, people are like, oh, you're one of the spiritual people. No, that's literally science. We are made up of vibrations. We're made up of energy. And we change our vibration based on what we eat and drink and how we sleep and how we think and our habits. This is scientific. It's not some big cosmic hippie whatever. This is scientifically backed. And if you want to change what vibrational level you're on, you change something that is within your control, your daily habits, your thoughts, etc. Who you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with people of a certain vibration, you will remain on that vibration. It's one of the reasons why I choose to surround myself with people who consistently want to better themselves, who consistently vibrate in an energy of love, love for themselves and love for the earth and love for living things and humanity. That is the vibration that I want to live in. And so I surround myself with people who vibrate like that to keep me in that vibration. And this goes back to the whole forgiveness versus letting go thing. There are people who have left my life either of their own accord, or I chose not to maintain a connection with them. And I harbor absolutely no ill will for those people, but they were not on the vibration that I wanted to be on. And so I let that connection die. I did not pursue them when they left, or I chose not to maintain the relationship. I have no ill will towards these people. I wish them the best, but that was not how I wanted to live. And I knew if I maintained a close relationship with them, it would change my vibration to something that I did not want it to be. So what's the point of all this? I always try to bring it back around to that. What's the point of all this? Because doing shadow work is great. Grieving your trauma is great. Unpacking your unconscious patterns is great. Examining and looking under a microscope at your belief systems that may or may not be yours, that may have been handed to you, is great. But if you stay there, then there's no point in it. The point is to work through it. This goes back, I think I bring it up just about every episode, it feels like, to the myth of Inanna. Yes, go down. Go down to the underworld. Die to yourself. Die to the parts of you that need to die. Let yourself die and be reborn. But if you just die, if you just stay down there in the underworld, looking around, hanging on a meat hook, then you have not accomplished the entire point of it. You have to be reborn. You have to resurrect yourself. You have to take it to a conclusion. It's not just, well, I believe this because my parents told me that. And so I adopted it as my own without examining it. Great! Now you know that. So what are you going to do with that? If that's where you end it, you haven't done anything. Do you believe that? Does that belief serve you? Is that a helpful belief? Is it a belief that aligns with the life that you want to live? And if it doesn't, what does? So, what do we do with this? Forgiveness, letting go, whatever. I have not found many people who are adults who are benefited by a black and white belief system of good versus bad, toxic versus healthy, unless these people are in the depths of therapy and having to work out boundaries where they have had none. If that does not describe you, if you are not intensively working with a therapist, if you don't have boundaries, then this is not a belief system that serves you. It's black and white, good and bad, toxic versus unhealthy, or toxic versus healthy. It's not a belief system that serves. It is a belief system that divides. It is a belief system that keeps you stressed. It is a belief system that keeps you at odds with people. It is an us versus them mentality, and that doesn't help anyone. Shift. Shift away from that. Shift to a belief system. Shift to a mentality that will serve you, that will help you grow, that will help you be at peace with the world around you. You don't have to hate that coworker. You can just say, I'm not aligned with them. So I'm not going to go out of my way to have discussions with them. I'm not going to let myself be triggered by whatever it is they say or do that grates on me. When they get in my bubble, I am going to recognize that they are on a different vibration and only interact with them as is necessary. I will keep my reactions to a minimum so that I am not triggered. I am not lowering my own vibration to interact with that energy. And then it's not, I had a horrible day. I had to be around that guy all day long. He was just so annoying and he wouldn't stop talking and he always talks down to me and he's so rude and he's so condescending and he talks to me like I'm an idiot and I can't stand it. I was around him all day long. I just don't even want to talk to anyone now. Shift it. Now it's, okay, I have to work with this guy today. How am I going to protect myself and my energy? When he tries to instigate, when he tries to push my buttons, I will not react. I will take a deep breath and I will respond only as necessary. If the statement or question does not really require my response, I will not give one. If it does require my response, if I have to interact, I will respond minimally and keep my boundaries up and emotionless so that he does not feel validated by triggering me, and he will cease to interact with me in ways that trigger me. I will keep my center. I will stay grounded. I will be peaceful within myself, no matter what is happening outside myself, and I will keep my vibration where I want my vibration to be. I will not let someone else alter my vibration. Because it all boils down to, who are we? Who are we on the inside? And how do we show up in the world? That everything boils down to that. Who are we? Who are we on the inside? How do we show up in the world? And everything else is just decorations around that. Nothing else is within your control. That's the only thing that's within your control. So, how do you want to vibrate? Who are you? Who are you on the inside? And how do you want to show up in the world? And if your answers to those questions are not what you want them to be, then ask yourself what you can do to change it. And if your answers are things that are outside of your control, sit with it longer and ask yourself what you can do to change it. For a very long time, I had no peace within myself, and I blamed it on all of my circumstances around me. Well, if I could just have quiet in the house or apartment, if I could just have, more money where I didn't have to worry about bills and eating and things like that. And yes, those things are true. Sure, you need a peaceful environment. You need to be able to afford your bills. But I can't change that, so I can change myself, though. Because it's not about what's happening to you or what's around you. It's about how you think about it. The problem is not the problem. The problem is your attitude about the problem. And that's not to say that there aren't bad things that happen that are problems, but your attitude about it is what changes it. Because there are people who can go through the most horrible, worst traumatic shit and come out of it happy, peaceful, loving people. And there are people who go through that and take out their grief and their anger on everyone around them. The problem is not the problem. The problem is your attitude about the problem. So how can you change your attitude to change your vibration to be who you want to be? How can you forgive yourself for not being who you needed you to be? And how can you let go of that person who you don't want to be and become the one who you do want to be? I love you all so much, and I thank you so much for joining me for an entire year on this podcast. I'm overwhelmed at the fact that it's still going and that I still keep getting comments, and your comments are the reason why I keep doing this. Because, as I've always said, if I can help one person to not feel alone, if I can make one person's day a little better or feel a little more like things are not as bad as you thought they might be, then it's all worth it. As always, if you have episode suggestions, email them to mosaicinprogress@gmail.com. Please follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. Share it with whoever you know that listens to podcasts. We're on social media, Instagram and Facebook as Mosaic in Progress. And as always, please join us again next time as we both continue to work on our Mosaic in Progress.